A 5 cm incision is created between the posterior medial border of the proximal tibia and tibial tubercle. Here, we poke through the sartorius expansion and create an L-shaped incision, with the vertical limb of the incision carried to the level of the tibial tubercle. The pes tendons are then retracted, which then exposes the superficial MCL fibers. The damaged ends of the distal aspect of the MCL are debrided until smooth edges of the ligament are encountered. The MCL is dissected until it is completely mobilized. The center of the distal MCL is marked, as this is the future site of the screw and spiked washer. Next, a number 2 fiber wire suture is then used in a running crack-out fashion, beginning distally and proceeding proximally up the anterior and posterior borders of the MCL. Special attention is taken to start the suture proximal to where the screw is going to be placed. This is to ensure proper tensioning of the sutures as they wrap around the screw to create a washer post suture post construct. At the level of the previously marked distal MCL limb, a second mark should be made on the tibia, as this is where the 18 mm spiked washer and screw will be placed and secured. The 18 mm spiked washer is placed to the posterior medial border of the tibia. Next, a 3-2 mm bicortical drill hole is created. The depth of the future screw is measured and approximately 2 to 3 mm is added depending on the thickness of the MCL fibers. Prior to insertion of the screw, a 4-5 mm tap is inserted through both cortices. A scalpel is then used to create a small, half centimeter poke hole incision created in the distal fibers of the MCL to accommodate the screw and washer. The knee is placed in 20 degrees of flexion and a varus stress is applied while the screw is inserted. A 4-5 mm bicortical screw and spiked washer is inserted with a hand driver. Importantly, the screw is not completely seated to bone. At this point, the ligament is secured by passing both the suture ends in a crisscross or X pattern around the screw. The screw is then continually advanced until bicortical fixation is obtained. The MCL is further secured using traditional alternating knots and tying the suture ends around the posts and then cutting the suture flush. Our attention is now turned to the proximal tibial attachment of the superficial medial MCL. This is where two 2.4 mm fast-tack suture anchors are inserted both anterior and posterior to the MCL. Here, the anchors are tested to ensure they are secured. The anterior limb of the suture from the fast-tack suture anchor is then attached to a free Mayo needle. The suture is used to secure the anterior aspect of the proximal superficial MCL. The suture limb should then exit out the apex. The anterior limb is then secured with alternating knots. This is followed in the same manner with the posterior suture. The 4 suture ends are then cut near the base of the knot. Here, we demonstrate the importance of closing the sartorius expansion, which provides additional soft tissue coverage over the suture washer construct to prevent irritation. The distal limb of our L-shaped incision through the sartorius expansion is closed with interrupted ovicular sutures. Subsequently, we proceed with closure of the proximal limb of the L-shaped incision as we exit out the apex to complete the closure of the sartorius expansion.